Coach Painter's a busy guy, so I want to be really respectful of his time, and I'm going to get us started. I'm just going to make a very few announcements because I really want to give enough time for Coach Painter to speak here. But as a reminder, if you will mute yourself during Coach Painter's presentation, and then I'm expecting a pretty big crowd today. We'll take questions via chat if you'll send those to me. I want to thank you to our September meeting sponsor, Trent Cowles. We really appreciate it, Trent. He not only is sponsoring September, he said, I want to sponsor October as well. And Trent will take the whole year if you want to, but really very generous of you to do this. Reminder also that all of our in-person meetings have been canceled through October 1 due to COVID. We have some great programs coming up next week, very important discussion on race relations, and then continuing our college basketball theme. And he also has a Purdue tie. We've got Steve Lavin, who will speak to us on September 17th and our past President's Day. And then I'll be hanging it up as your president. We'll turn it over to a new president, which I'm sure is welcome news to all of you. And speaking of, we got some great news this week. Our foundation goal, our campaign goal is $105,000. And Phyllis Usher and one other anonymous donor stepped up, and we are very, very close. We're at the almost $103,000 raised of our $105,000 goal. I think my thread of staying on as your president until we hit the goal worked. And so we're hoping to close that out in the next week. So those are my announcements. And I'm going to read Coach Painter's bio, which the bio I got, Coach, was 9 pages long, so I'm going to have to abbreviate it. But really thrilled to have Coach on. I out of the blue, emailed his assistant thinking it'd be a long shot to get him on here with how busy he is, and 24 hours later got a response saying he'd be glad to join Kiwanis. So I think that speaks a lot to him. I will read some of the snippets because he's got just a very prestigious resume here, but with 5 Sweet 16 appearances, 11 NCAA tournament berths, 3 Big Ten regular season championships, a Big Ten tournament title, and an international gold medal on his resume. He's the L. Dick Buell men's basketball head coach at Purdue and widely regarded as one of the best coaches in college basketball. Those of you who know me know I'm an intense basketball junkie, and I agree with it. I think he's just been one of the great coaches in the game. After reaching back-to-back Sweet 16s in 2017 and 2018, Coach Painter once again proved his ability in 2019, leading a team that was supposed to fall back to the back-to-back to another Big Ten championship in the Boilermakers' first appearance in the Elite Eights in 2000. He was named National Association of Basketball Coach of the Year. Entering 2021, hopefully, Coach Painter owns a 362 and 179 record while attaining a 337 and 174 mark at Purdue. I want to read just a couple more highlights because these are, for me, some very, very impressive statistics. He's averaged almost 23 wins a season in his 15 years at Purdue. He's won 25 games in 9 of his 16 seasons. 3 Big Ten Coach of the Year honors, puts him in pretty great company with Gene Cady, Bob Knight, and Bo Ryan. Averaged 11.1 wins per year in conference play. And as you know, the Big Ten Conference is a brutal conference year in and year out. 11 NCAA tournaments in the last 14 years. That's incredible. 5 Sweet 16 appearances in the last 12 years. Though I will say, Coach, as a Butler guy, the game in Detroit a couple years ago broke my heart. I still have visions of Kamar Baldwin hitting that last shot to put it to overtime. But I'll leave it at that. I think, again, one of the things I appreciate most about Coach Painter is the stability. We see a lot of coaches just jumping and jumping and jumping, and you don't always see coaches who stay at one place, and he's done that. Last thing I'll mention, we do have a special guest, I believe, on the call, a big Purdue fan, maybe the biggest Purdue fan. You recall a couple weeks ago we had a presentation on Eva Core, and her husband, Mickey Core, there he is wearing his Purdue hat, is on the call. So, Coach, it's all yours. I know there's a lot to talk about. Again, we can't thank you enough for being on here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's obviously it's a little bit of a different world. We're all living on Zoom calls. And so I'm on a lot of committees and from basketball, and that's what you're always trying to do, trying to, make improvements and improve the game. Obviously, you're trying to improve college basketball, your own conference, your own institution. But I think it's something with the game of basketball about it's been so good to me that, just trying to give something back and trying to keep plugging. It's like any business or any company, that has success. You just don't ever stop working towards making improvements and making it better. So it's an honor to be on here, and I appreciate everybody's support. And I think we have a special situation at Purdue, with the people that we have and with the education, and then the support we have in our basketball program. So we were one of 9 schools last year that sold out every single game. And so, and we really didn't have that good of a season. We ended up 16-15, 9-11 in our league. That was coming off winning our league and going to the Elite Eight. And it just shows you the loyalty and the fan support that we have at Purdue. And very, very fortunate, very grateful to be the head coach. I think anytime you get and have a little bit of success, Bill Walsh used to talk about the disease of me. And anytime you have some success, it's a very natural human behavior to think, boy, I'm really doing this and I'm doing it well, when in reality, you're just really a spoke in the wheel. You're just a small part of it. You are a part of it, but you're a small part of it. Anytime you're in a team sport or you're in a leadership role, if you can use that and use that platform to let everybody know that, you're not that big of a deal. And you got to think about other people. You got to think about the other coaches. You got to think about your teammates or the players or, whatever your role is. That's what makes it go around. And that's what really breeds success is just trying to be humble and understand that. I always talk about if they come in and they fire me, Purdue will still probably, have a season. I used to always use that line, and now we're trying to have a season with this pandemic. So, but be grateful for what you have, because you're not always going to have it. And I always try to tell our players that your window of playing in college basketball is very small. So if you kind of unpack mentally, understand you're here to get an education, understand about some basic things that you need to do. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think they got to do everything, and you can't do everything. But if you sit back and you do the simple things and you're on time and you try your best and you act like you have some sense, good things are going to happen for you, because I'm not in the business of taking bad basketball players. I'm in the business of taking good basketball players. But once you get to Purdue, you have to understand the big picture of education and treating people the right way. And then if you work hard on your basketball game, everything kind of falls into place. And you'd be amazed how much or how far the game of basketball can take you if you treat it the right way. So those are just a lot of things that Coach Katie really instilled in me. My high school coach instilled in me, and I try to instill in our players. And I have a saying, I have no idea where I got it from. It's a very simple saying that we really live by. We want to make our hard work fun. And there's a lot of things that come with playing at a high level in college basketball. And sometimes you'll have, some anxiousness. Sometimes you can get down on yourself, but you got to keep things in perspective and see the big picture and get your education, work on your game, play hard, not take yourself too seriously, and just go out there and just make things a lot of fun and just keep plugging and keep working. There is another team out there. One of the things that I don't like about today's environment, today's culture, is kids read things all the time because of social media. They live in that vacuum of receiving information. And when they get all that information that says how great they are, that's not good for them. And when they get all that information that says that's harsh, when they have some struggles, that's not good for them. And so really talking to our guys about how to really leave one part of it alone and understand when people say nice things about you, to stay grounded. And when people say derogatory things about you, keep your focus on what you're doing. But if you want to use that as fuel to be successful, do it. But if you want it to beat you up, you're going to go in the other direction. So that's hard for a young player, and that's hard for him. So we really try to help our guys. Most of the time when guys have success is because, they stay on the straight and narrow. When guys struggle, they do it to themselves. It's mistakes that they make, whether that's socially or not committing enough or not taking their academics seriously. So a lot of times that failure comes from somebody just simply doing it to themselves. And so trying to get out in front of that with your players, trying to get them to understand what they have to do. When they get recruited, as hard as they get recruited, there's a piece of them that gets a little bit invincible. And when you get older in life, you get humbled. And they just haven't been humbled enough. And so we try to do some of that humbling for them to make sure that they understand that the world doesn't care if they can make a jump shot or not. It's really not that an important thing. Basketball is really not that important when it gets down to it, even though people enjoy it, people like watching it, but it's not who you are. And those are the type of things that you really got to get with guys, because if they leave your college or they leave your school and they don't understand those things, it can get hard for them. They have to understand, and Coach Katie always talked about this, you got to get up early and you got to outwork somebody. And he really stressed a company man. He'd always talk about be a company man, do what's best for Purdue, do what's best for our program. And when you do that, you're really doing what's best for you. And be a company man across the board, do what's best for your family, do what's best for the business that you're working for, and great things are going to happen for you individually. So those are just some of the things that we try to incorporate and do in our program and keep things simple, for our guys. And it's a different time, because right now what we're going through, this is something as a coach that we haven't been through. All the things they go through before, we experience it. This will be my 31st year playing and coaching college basketball. And so you experience a lot of different things that your players, either aren't ready for or don't have a great deal of an experience, and you help them through it. But now, being in a pandemic and going through this is now they got to make great decisions. They got to make great social decisions, and it's a little bit different than a normal setting. But if you're going to be successful as a team, or you're going to be successful really in anything, you have to be able to sacrifice. And I think that word is going to be really important across the country in college basketball, is who can sacrifice away from the court socially and make good decisions. And so you're, you don't get the coronavirus, you don't get it and give the coronavirus to other people. You do everything in your power to do the right things along those lines. So it's different times, but you have to educate yourself. You have to be smart, and you have to be able to reach them. That's a hard thing to do in coaching. It's a hard thing to do in parenting. Like, when do you reach them? Sometimes you reach them at a young age. Sometimes it takes a while. We all turn 25 or 35 or whatever it is, and you realize that your dad wasn't a fool. You always thought your dad was a fool, or what your mom said they didn't understand. But at some point you mature and you realize that they probably made the mistake that you're getting ready to make, and they're trying to stop you from making that mistake. Well, coaching is no different, and so the one equalizer in coaching is, if you get guys that won't do what you ask them to do, you have other guys that, hopefully will. And that normally, sharpens the pencil and gets guys in the right frame of mind to understand, like, hey, this is, when the season ends to when the season begins, we do everything in our power to try to help the individual player. But right as our season begins and we start practice, we do everything in our power and make those decisions that are Purdue based. And what's best for our program, what's best for our team. Well, now in the big picture of this pandemic, what's best for everybody, human life, what's best for society, what's best for the state of Indiana, what's best for Purdue University, what's best for our athletic department, wearing a mask, social distancing, washing your hands, making good. So those things are really, really important. So you can see how, anything that you can do in big picture stuff, there's a lot of little things that can lead to help in the big picture, in life and a pandemic and basketball and competition and things of that nature. So I will open this up. As a coach, I could sit here and talk forever, and I don't want to put you guys to sleep. And I literally could keep going, but I'd rather have you guys ask some questions because I got to get off at 12:45, and I want to make sure I answer the questions that you have.
And I'm sure we'll have a lot of them. I've already got some coming in, so a reminder, send those to me via chat. Coach, do you think this year can be played in a bubble as has been in the NBA? How do you visualize it could work with the Big Ten and Big East possibly playing each other?
Well, I think we can get into some small bubbles at times, especially at the end in the NCAA tournament. That could end up being, a bubble at that. Right now we're, I don't think anybody would feel comfortable at this time across the board playing basketball while students were here. And I think with some medical advancements and some consistent testing, I think we can get to that point. I don't think we're quite comfortable enough to do that, but it also is just the start of September. So we do have some time here. And I do believe with school getting out early around Thanksgiving, we can start at that time. But where will we be when school starts in the middle of January in the second semester? Will there be a vaccine then? Will the testing be good enough at that time where we can then play while school is in session? I do not think we'll have fans until we can get a vaccine and get some things consistent across the board, like I mentioned, in testing protocols.
Got a question here about motivation. Can you tell us a little bit about your coaching philosophy and what you think is the most effective way to motivate players? I might add this generation, because I think you're well aware this is a different generation than perhaps when you played.
Yeah, just be as honest as you can be. I start, with how I deal with guys is with how I recruit them. I don't say something to them in recruiting that I don't feel, and I make sure that they know that we have other guys on our team, and whoever competes and wins a spot gets a spot. And just because you did it one year doesn't mean you get it the next year. And I just think being that direct with them is appealing to the guys that are going to work for you. That might not be appealing for other guys, but broke deals don't work. Brokering some deal to get somebody, then they get there and they realize that, you said what you had to say to get them, and they're not going to play for you. They're going to look right through you. So I think the best thing from a motivational standpoint is to be as honest as you can be. Be honest where they are. Be honest what they need to do to get on the court. Be honest about playing to your strengths. So many guys want to do so many things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Keep working on your game. Keep getting better in all phases. But when it comes to playing and being productive, you got to play to your strengths, and you got to minimize, playing to your weaknesses or eliminate it. And the good ones understand that. And the great role players, that's how they, keep on the court, is because, they understand what their weaknesses are, and they don't try to expose those things. So that's a real important piece. There's a lot of talented guys out there that learn to be productive and use their talents. But there's talented guys out there that have no idea about being productive. And there's guys with little talent that end up being productive players for you. I shouldn't say little talent, but maybe not as much as some other guys. But, we get gauged as coaches. We get gauged as players on being productive and winning, and, have winning ways. Don't sit around and talk about, we got to win, we got to win, we got to win, we got to win. Understand what wins, and then focus on those things, and that's going to lead to winning.
Great. This question comes from your 94-year-old Purdue fan and 52 graduate, Mickey Core, who, speaking of some of your great players, do you think Carson Edwards and Caleb Swanigan will both have successful pro careers?
Well, first of all, hello, Mickey. How are you doing? I hope the whole Core family's doing well, and I appreciate your question and your support. They have to find their ways. It's a very competitive world. It's the best league in the world. It's the best players in the world. And, they have to learn to to fit in where they are. They're both on, playoff teams. The Portland Trailblazers is a playoff team. The Boston Celtics are up 2-0 in the second round of the playoffs. They're playoff teams. And so, like, it's harder, obviously, to play on better teams. And just trying to keep working and, when you get opportunities, make the most of it. But, when you're not playing, be positive and keep getting better. Don't get frustrated. Just keep getting better. Just keep working on the things that are going to get you on the floor. And it doesn't happen right away. It just doesn't. It's a process. Etuan Moore is a guy that, has really worked into his 9th year now to where, he's a steady contributor, for the New Orleans Pelicans. His contract's up with them. And so he'll be a free agent. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. But he didn't play a lot early in his career. He got in with the Magic, then he got to the Bulls, and first year at the Bulls, he didn't play with them. His first year in the NBA at the Celtics, he didn't play. So, but when he got with the Magic, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA. And so you get more of an opportunity. He goes to the Bulls, they're better. He had less of an opportunity. Then in his second year at the Bulls, he really played well. And that's what got him his opportunity in his 4-year contract with the Pelicans. And, he averaged, 10 to 12 points with the Pelicans in his 4 years and really did well and really stabilized himself and has a good name in the NBA. And now, he'll have another opportunity with another team. Maybe it is the Pelicans, maybe it's somebody else, but, sometimes, the road gets tough and, you can't get frustrated. You just have to keep working and, and figure things out.
Good question here. What was the hardest lesson you've had to help someone learn and understand?
Basketball wise, just the hardest lesson is when there's other people on the team that are in roles that they probably want. Sometimes with some really good teams we've had, our 3rd, 4th, 5th options were really good players, and getting them to be able to buy into that role when they're capable of doing more. But you have other people there, and that's hard. It's always hard to get a freshman to understand some of the sacrifices and the discipline, especially defensively, sticking to our rules and just understanding the game, understanding how to play the right way, and just how good you have to be across the board to be successful. Those are hard lessons. It's like life. There's certain things you can learn through watching film and listening and practicing, and then there's certain things you have to experience yourself. And most of us learn better when we fall down. That's why our culture of change, a lot more kids change AAU programs or change high schools or prep schools. And now in college, they're moving the rules more to letting them change, but they're not helping the kids. They're just not, we're treating other people's kids in a way that we wouldn't treat our own. When our own kids have adversity, you make your own kids fight through that adversity, and then you fight through it and you figure it out and you grow and you become better because of it. But if we're always changing and transferring and leaving, now, what did we teach them? There's nothing wrong with transferring, but now we're eliminating when they have to sit out. And when you have to sit out, you have to grow up and you have to figure it out. You have to quickly understand, I left one school and I didn't agree with what was going on. And now I'm at school B and they're saying the same things that school A said. And they both can't be wrong. And, basketball is not a tough sport to figure out in terms of be successful, but it is tough to be, one of the better teams. Everybody, it's very, very competitive. So those lessons are hard, but the guys that kind of stick it out and they're honest and they have people around them. A lot of times the people around you that love you are really good people, but they don't understand competition all the time. And they only look at things through the vision of the person that they care about. Whereas coaches look through the vision of all your players. You make team decisions. You don't always make individual decisions when you're saying who's going to start or who's going to play. Those things are, whatever's the best for Purdue. So, but if you got somebody around those players that understands those things and understands those values and really harps on those things, that really helps the individual grow and get better.
I want to follow that up. Just Coach Painter was on the Dan Dockett show a few months ago, and you were probably as candid coach, as I've heard in speaking about the transfer epidemic, as I would call it. I think there were more than 1,000 players who transferred this offseason.
Yeah.
You, if you're not familiar, in the past, you've had to sit out a year before you transferred. I believe there's a proposed rule where you would not. And coach, do you anticipate that'll be passed, and when will it? And then one additional question is your thoughts on the graduate transfers, which, to be candid, we benefited from here at Butler.
Right. Well, I serve on a handful of committees, and one of the committees is the Men's Basketball Oversight Committee that has 2 coaches in America on it, myself and Conzo Martin from Missouri. I also serve on the subcommittee for the one-time transfer that you're mentioning. And so we got that rule pushed for a vote to January. This was going to happen last spring. They moved it because of the pandemic. I don't think it makes sense to even vote on it in January, considering we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Excuse me, but it looks like they will. And there's just a lot of things that come with it. They're really trying to get uniformity between sports. And there's a lot of differences in sports, in the actual practicality of the sport, the rules of the sport, the recruiting of the sport, the squad size, whatever it might be. There's so many differences. So why they're pushing for this uniformity, it's really, the one-time transfer is really pushed through the name, image, and likeness, which that is coming up. And, there has to be some help from a regulatory standpoint on a federal basis. With that, there's still a lot of work that has to be done, but this is really the one-time transfer comes from that name, image, and likeness. We need to do some more things for players, but the opportunity players get through their education and the scholarships that they get. We've done some things with some gap money trying to help them. And we have to continue to do some of those things, but we can't lose sight of the big picture and the opportunity that these players, do have. I think the growth, we can't lose the growth. And if guys are always leaving and always transferring, how are they going to develop? How are they going to grow? How are they going to learn, lessons? That's going to be really, really difficult. So it's, they call it student athlete rights, but it's really their freedom of movement. And, we all know and understand how we thought when we were 18, 19, 20, and how we looked at, sometimes parents and people that were, in some authority roles that would say stuff to us, and we didn't quite grasp that and understand that. But yet in time we did, because they were thinking about us and making us go through things and making those hard decisions for us, because that's what was best for us. I don't think some of these things are best for the student athletes. I just don't. I don't think running from adversity, allowing people to transfer whenever they want, it is going to help them in the long run. What we've improved on through the years is we've improved on men's basketball graduation rates. And if people are changing schools across the board, we know that's not going to be something that's going to help that. But yet we're still going to do it. 8 years ago, they made the rule for the 5th-year transfer that you mentioned. And roughly around 33% of those guys that have done the 5th year, that have graduated and then went somewhere else to get their master's degree, have graduated, which is an incredibly low number. And it's not something that, when they started the rule, that they thought would be the case. And now people are making these moves, especially the guys that go from low to mid majors to high majors, and they really haven't been that successful. And then you're not having success in the classroom. So as coaches, we don't understand that rule. It's hurt low to mid-major basketball. We're not having successful graduation rates, but yet they don't do anything about the rule. Well, now, to piggyback on top of this, now we're going to allow the one-time transfer, and there's going to be very little parameters on it. We're trying to set some parameters right now for it, but even getting to those points to get some stringent parameters so you have a model that can sustain and be successful, has been really hard to do. And to me, I'm even though I'm talking a lot about it, it leaves you speechless. It really does, because the big picture is having discipline, getting your degree. Guys that transfer, very few of them get drafted. In the last 7 years, there's been 4 there's been 4 first-round picks in the draft. So there's 60 picks, and then times 7 years, you got 420 picks out of those guys that have transferred. We had 1,000 guys. There's been 4 of them. There's been 4 guys drafted in the first round. I think there was 13 drafted in the second round. So you have roughly, 17. I might be off by 1 or 2 there. Guys drafted out of 420 people in 7 years. So the transfers are not getting drafted, and the transfers, very few of them are becoming NBA players. And then you go to the 5th-year transfer and you say roughly 33% of them have graduated, so it's not helping you academically. Well, who's it helping then? If it's not helping these guys have better, college careers, and if it's not helping them academically and it's not helping them professionally, where's it helping? So name, image, and likeness has really moved the needle, and they're really trying to help, in their eyes, give more opportunities for players to make money. And the one thing that I think part of it is good, because we need to have some opportunities, but there's also some other opportunities that are on a slippery slope that I just don't think is sustainable through name, image, and likeness. Now, I think there's parts of name, image, and likeness that are good for the student athlete, but we're having a lot of congressional heat. We have some senators that have really talked about this. They've really focused in on how much money college coaches make, and college coaches do make too much money. And I think that's something, as a coach, I got in it to help people. I got in it to coach basketball. I didn't get in it to make money. I got very fortunate that I was in the right place at the right time. And I've been at 2 great schools in Southern Illinois and Purdue that have been very successful through the years. So there's a lot of layers there that I just talked about, but just trying to help players and hopefully navigate through some of the things that we're going through right now, and make really good decisions on what's best for college basketball and good for individual players.
Again, really appreciate your leadership and candor. I wish more coaches were following your lead. Really good question here, and somebody I respect a great deal, but your impressions of Mitch Daniels as a leader, his disruption in higher education, and then I'd add, his support of Purdue athletics.
Well, he's great. Mitch is somebody, obviously, that was the governor of our state for 8 years, and he's been there, done that. He's had to make tough decisions, and but always trying to make the right decisions for the people of Indiana. And now he's making those decisions, for us at Purdue. And when you're in leadership roles, I always say you're not going to please everybody, so you might as well make the right decision in your eyes for everybody. And when that happens, you're going to have a lot of people pointing fingers, and that's okay. That's part of it. A lot of the time, the people that are pointing those fingers that are coming at you, have never been in those kind of situations or those roles. So we're thankful. To everything that he has done, and he's done a lot of great things for our students. He's done a lot of great things from an educational standpoint, and hopefully, we can continue through this pandemic and and keep growing and learning and doing what's right for Purdue and doing what's right for this community. And I know he feels that way. And but we're, like I said, man, we're very grateful. We're very grateful to have him, at Purdue.
Great person, somebody I really admire. The only thing I don't like is every morning I get an article about what Mitch Daniels is doing. And who aren't you guys at Butler? When are you going to do this? You touched upon social media a little bit, but can you comment on the effect social media has on recruiting and the competition in recruiting?
Right. Well, social media, has had a huge impact on, everyday life. You look at decisions that be made, you look at, you get a lot of leverage in this world through social media. You get a lot of leverage in the public eye, but do you have that same leverage when it comes to making decision in everyday life or in the courts or, whatever your field is? And so you have to be able to take the good of social media. There's a lot of good that happens in social media. You're raising money for a particular fund or somebody in need, or a charity, or saying something positive about somebody, uplifting somebody. There's so many good things, but then there's a downside to it, and so leaving some of that alone and hanging on everybody's word and there's nothing wrong with, voicing your opinion, but some of the things that go out there, we have young people that are striving to get an education and grow as basketball players and people and develop. And if they listen to everything that's being said, or, who's being ranked, and there's just a lot of things that go on that are unnecessary, that happen. But, it's kind of part of it. And it's part of growth in today's world. If you're older and you just get mad about it and want to take your ball and go home, you're not going to help the people underneath you. And it's your job as a leader, it's your job as a coach to be able to navigate through some of those things and make sure that they're listening, to the right messages and the right people, through social media. I think that's the best way, because they're reading everything. They're on top of everything. You'd be surprised. So your communication with them, and understanding and having a pulse on your team about where they are, but also respecting, your guys and who they are and what they stand for, and and their beliefs. Be supportive of them. You just got to make sure that they don't, especially socially, get away from you. And they have to keep things in perspective, and they have to have their priorities in an order when it comes to treating people the right way, education, and seeing the big picture.
Very good. I promise I'm not asking this question, but we have a devout Butler fan on the call who has pinged me about 5 times here and wants to know, again, we've had some great coaches in the state, you, Coach Katie, Coach Knight, others. Your thoughts on Brad Stevens as a role model, and then when you play Butler, what is that approach like in preparation? And then I'm going to throw one more question on, which I know you may not be able to say a lot about, but I've heard the Crossroads Classic could potentially go away. I hope not, but if you cover that one as well.
Right. Yeah, we still have 2 years left on the Crossroads contract, and we'll see at that time. I'm a big supporter of it. We probably have the worst record. I think we do have the worst record, which not proud of that, but I think it's a great event for our state. I think it's a great event for the Butler, Indiana, Notre Dame, and Purdue fans. It's just where can you drive 60 miles to the state capitol and play in a state like Indiana, which is a hotbed for basketball, and play 2 games that are going to really help you. Whether you win or you lose, they help you. And those teams that are in that are normally NCAA teams, and that competition is so important. It's hard to kind of frame a great schedule, and that really helps you frame a great schedule to get a neutral game like that, within your own state. But no, Brad Stevens is, one of the best coaches in the world, one of the best people, just a good guy, and, proud that I call him a friend, and just happy for all the success that he's had. And obviously did a great job at Butler. He's done a great job, with the Boston Celtics, but he gets it. He understands big picture of things, and a very grounded and humble person. And Micah Shrewsbury was one of his assistants at Butler and the Celtics, and now he's back with us again at Purdue, and so he's done an unbelievable job for us at Purdue. So we've been able to learn from Brad Stevens without being around Brad Stevens all the time. And so just with Coach Shrewsbury here, and his knowledge and the experiences that they've shared at Butler and Boston, and it's definitely helped our program. There's no question about that. And but just happy that we have people like him in our profession, and that get development, that get understanding of what it's about to mold teams together into a championship caliber. So no, but he's an outstanding guy.
A couple more questions, because we're going to get you out of here on time. Good question here. How big a part does humility play in the game? And I'm interested, again, now when you see recruits picking their schools, on an ESPN press conference and the cap thing. And I can't imagine what it's like with some of the big time recruits and the element of humility.
Yeah. Well, as a coach, no matter where you are, you get told no a lot. And sometimes what makes sense to you doesn't make sense to them. You just have to kind of keep that in mind and understanding. And there's been times you're just like, man, this is a slam dunk. Like, we're getting this guy, and you don't. And there's times like, man, I don't know if we're getting him. And then you do. And just even when you get bad news, try your best to kill him with kindness. Try your best, because you take it personal. when somebody chooses another school, your knee-jerk, reaction is it's personal. They chose another head coach over you. I mean, that's how I feel naturally. Now, as time goes on, I don't feel that way. But when it first happens, you're competitive. And, when we lose games at Purdue, like you reeled off my resume, and the only thing that set with me was how many times we lost, because that's part of it. That's part of sharpening the pencil, and that's how you get better. And I remember those losses more than I cherish those wins, and I wish it was different. But that's how I naturally feel. And so you just try to do your best, try to be honest. And for the same reason why you got somebody should be the same reason why you lost somebody. Like, just because it's appealing to one guy doesn't mean it's appealing to the next guy, but it is an inexact science. And, you just try to be yourself and shoot them straight. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to lose some, but you're still going to get some. And you don't get judged on the people you don't get. You get judged on the people that you do get.
I remember reading Dean Smith wrote letters to every player that turned him down. I don't know how often that happens, but thought it was interesting. Okay, 2 last questions. Who is your mentor in life and in basketball?
I would say I have a lot of, mentors. Obviously, the guys I played for, Coach Katie, and in college, and Stan Doherty, my high school coach, was a really good high school coach. And, both those guys really helped me as people and as players. I worked for Tom Ryder my first year at Washington Jefferson. He was an assistant at Indiana. He was an assistant at Purdue while I played. And I was the first guy that hired me. And then he ended up working in compliance and administration here at Purdue. He passed away a handful of years ago, but gave me my first opportunity. And I worked for Dave Davis at a Division II school, Barton College. And that was a great experience. And Dave's still in coaching and has been a very successful coach at the Division II level. Now he's at Winthrop. And then I worked for Rick Samuels, who was at Eastern Illinois for the same 25 years as a head coach that Coach Katie was at Purdue. And just a really good coach and class act, and really understood how to run a program. Then I was with Bruce Weber for 5 years at Southern Illinois, who recruited me at Purdue and was assistant at Purdue my 4 years. So I'd been around him the longest. I've been around Bruce Weber 9 years total. So we were on the same staff at Southern Illinois. I was his assistant for that 5 years. And then when he went to Illinois, I was the head coach for 1 year. So, but he probably impacted me the most just because I spent the most time with him, and gave me a lot of responsibility, which I really enjoyed and appreciated. And that's what I try to do with assistants too, is like give them responsibility and let them grow. That's the only way they're going to grow. If I'm just dominating a practice or dominating workouts, or my voice is the only voice, that's just too much. You need to be able to grow your assistants and responsibility, but I really think it grows your program. And so those are guys, but I learned from a lot of people. I like going to clinics. I like figuring out new things. I do a lot of different things to try to figure out the people around me or the people coming into our program. And if you have a great support staff and you have a great coaching staff, and just the people in your program are, hardworking and honest people that, care about your players, is that you can actually make a lot of mistakes and still grow because you have the right people. If you don't have the right people, you can make a lot of right decisions and you're going to go backwards. Your product is your people. And so, but I'm very fortunate. There's some negativity in college basketball. And I always look like, how did that person get to make those decisions? Well, I look at it like maybe they didn't have the same people, in the business that I've had around me that really helped me. And a lot of that comes on a subconscious front. You're not always consciously thinking that way. You're just listening to them and listening to the stories they tell through their experiences, and, and learning. You got to learn from your mistakes, but you also have to be honest. That's something that when, I make mistakes, I try to, to own those mistakes and let our players know. And I think when you do that and you have that ownership of failure, it really helps you grow and have more success.
We're almost at time, but I do have one question you can answer real quickly, and then we've got a special presentation for you. Maybe a strange question. Isaac Haas is the biggest human being I've ever seen. If you're not familiar, he was 7'3". I don't know what he weighed, but how did you feed him, and how did you find a bed when you were on the road for him to sleep in?
You know, the road was a little bit difficult, but, you know, we got a longer bed for him, you know, when he got to campus. But just a big guy. You know, he got here, he's about 315, you know, 7'2", 315, size 22 shoes. We have a big young man that just came our way from Canada, played at IMG down in Florida. And, you know, Isaac ended up getting down to about 295, 300. That's about where he played. And Zach Edey is the kid that we just took. And he's 7'3", 290. And so it's, you know, you get from a basketball productivity standpoint, you know, you have to give them some different rules at times because it's just so much cargo. You know, it's just, you know, their movements, they can't have sudden movements. When they have sudden movements, especially defensively, they just take themselves out of the play. You know, they have to be compact. They have to stay big. And when they do make that one movement, that's got to be able to block a shot, go get a rebound, and just use their overall size. You know, if you're constantly trying to make a lot of movements, you're just going to take yourself out of place. Those guys that are that big are normally not great rebounders, you know, and so you really got to work with them on their positioning. You really got to work with them on having a nose from the ball, pick up the flight of the ball, be able to get contact and release and go get the ball. They have a real tough time making that second effort. So we work a lot with that. But Isaac taught us a lot, you know, because obviously we didn't have somebody like him before, even though we had, you know, guys like AJ Hammonds. AJ was just, he was very mobile for somebody 7 foot 250. He was a good runner, good athlete. And Isaac was just, you know, simply bigger, but he was fun to have, you know, as somebody that was definitely a weapon, and it was hard for the other team to adjust to his overall size.
Well, Coach, I'm going to ask for a virtual round of applause here from our Kiwanians. I can't thank you enough for doing this. We have so much respect for you here at Butler, and we want to make a special presentation. This is going to be a little bit different. We always award our speaker by making a donation in their name. We're going to do that to Big Brothers Big Sisters of Indianapolis, but
oh, cool.
Several of us on the call got to know your mom well, and Coach Painter's mom just passed away a few months ago. I've actually got a photo here of her, and she was a wonderful lady. Got to know her through the tournaments, and so we're going to be making that donation in your mom's name, Michelle Foltz. We will be sending you a certificate with that on there. And again, I can't thank you enough, Coach, for joining us.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for doing that. She would love that. So I really appreciate you guys making that donation in her name.
Okay, we'll let you go. And our Kiwanians, if you want to stick around for a few minutes for social time, we've got it. And Coach, wish you all the best of luck, and hopefully we have a season here.
All right. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Okay, we got a couple minutes. Welcome any thoughts, impressions of Coach Painter. Greg, you're on mute.
Did he have a question?
No.
I saw him talking.
I just thought he was really a person that we don't get a chance to really understand.